After playing Hollow Knight for the first time last year and loving it, I finally booted up Silksong for the first time. And I can confidently say that I'm going to love Silksong as much, if not even more, than Hollow Knight. I've kept myself in the dark about Silksong. I don't know the story or even what changes Team Cherry has made to the gameplay, so I'm playing through totally blind. And I have already had a number of surprises, but I want to use this video to provide some very, very early first impressions. First, Silksong is beautiful. Hollow Knight looked great, but if I'm honest, it doesn't look as good anymore now after having played Silksong. I'd seen some screenshots and videos from Silksong, so I had an idea of what it looked like, but it is a totally different feeling actually playing it. This game is beautiful. Second, I can tell already that Silksong's music is going to be every bit as good as Hollow Knight's. I did a whole video about how much I like Hollow Knight's music, and Silksong has picked up right where Hollow Knight left off. I didn't necessarily expect any less, because I believe that Christopher Larkin did the soundtrack for Silksong as well, but it is still very much welcome to hear. I can't wait to see where the soundtrack takes me, and I fully expect to have a lot of thoughts on the soundtrack by the time I'm done. In the meantime, I look forward to being able to listen to every song as it pops up on my journey. Third, and please tell me if I'm crazy, but is Silksong a little bit of an RPG? I see Hornet's Cape listed in my items, which makes me think that I'm going to be able to upgrade it or get different outfits or capes, so it obviously feels very RPG-like, and it's certainly more RPG-coded than anything in Hollow Knight was. And there's also now a tracked quest system. By the end of my first session, this bug had finished building the message board for quests, and I noticed that other quests were being tracked already. This is, in my opinion, a pretty big departure from anything that Hollow Knight did, but I don't mean that in a negative way. I'm interested to see what all of this turns into, but I have high hopes right off the bat. And if Silksong is a bit RPG coded, I'm all for it. Let's make Silksong even more addictive. Overall, the early stages of Silksong feel very familiar, which makes me feel at home, which is, of course, a very good thing. But there are quite a few changes to Hornet's gameplay, as there probably should be. Hornet is, of course, an entirely different character from the Knight. So I appreciate the fact that you do feel like you're playing a different character. But the first thing I noticed is that Hornet has a mechanic where she pulls herself up onto ledges. I'm not sure whether to call this a quality of life change because they probably balance the ledge height in this game around this mechanic, but the most important piece gameplay-wise is that it feels very satisfying. I don't know how else to explain it, but it feels very satisfying to do this. And her needle feels just like Hollow Knight's nail, but the new Silk system is a bit different than the old Soul system. First, I can't control how much health my Silk replenishes. And I don't know how I feel about this yet, so I'm pretty neutral on it to begin with. But one benefit is that she replenishes 3 or 4 masks of health much quicker than you could in Hollow Knight. Her general movement feels very familiar, but they changed the downward attack so that she attacks down and to the left or right at an angle. In my limited playing time so far, this is easily the biggest learning curve for me. On many occasions, I dove in the wrong direction from where I was trying to go, and this is going to take more practice. There was a section where I found this berry that I couldn't gain access to, and I eventually bounced off of the enemy and was able to reach the berry. So I'm wondering if pogoing is going to be even more important in Silksong than it was before in Hollow Knight, because I may see more of these puzzles, for lack of a better word, throughout the game. And if so, I need to get the hang of her attack angle down ASAP. Now, this early in my playthrough, there's probably not much that could have been done to make me particularly upset. I am riding the high of playing Silksong finally. And I could have started Silksong sooner than I did, but I feel for the players who were waiting years for this game to release. I can only imagine how difficult it was. So I'm sure my excitement pales in comparison to those who were playing Hollow Knight from the beginning, but it is still through the roof at this point. So there's not a whole lot that the game can do wrong right now. but I am making progress and loving every minute of it so far. In my first session, I found these pilgrims and their base area. It seems like this is going to be a hub that I will come back to fairly frequently. It is maybe this game's Dirtmouth equivalent. I'm not quite sure yet. And I also found this flea camp where they gave me an objective to find more fleas scattered around the area who need to come back and join their flea brethren. I also found chakra for all of my map needs. And thank God for that. I felt blind before I had a map. And all that I could think about before I found her was, when am I going to find the map maker? And at the end of my first session, I ended up defeating this boss. I actually didn't expect it to attack me at first, maybe naively, because I saved it from being trapped. But it's really cool that this boss fight also unlocked fast travel. I feel like I unlocked fast travel way quicker than I did in Hollow Knight, which is probably a good thing. But the boss fight was pretty fun overall, and a time for me to practice my downward attacks. As I said before, they absolutely need work. Also, I ran into this bug who likes to sing to open things. And I've seen pictures and artwork of hers before, so maybe she's going to be a pretty big NPC in this game, I'm not sure. And while she is, at least so far in my playthrough, a bit misguided in what she is doing, I got an absolute kick out of her. And I'm going to be excited when I run into her in the future. And that brings me to another point, which is that Hollow Knight's NPCs were top-notch, and Silksong seemed to be as well. I'm not sure how much of it is just their fun voice lines and noises that they make when you talk to them, but I remember in Hollow Knight always feeling a bit less lonely when I would find an NPC somewhere. They all brought a bit of light to a very dark world. It was a fun game to find Cornifer in particular, and his humming was always a welcome sound. It appears that Silksong is keeping that tradition around, which is fantastic for the game, I think. There's nothing quite like running into an old friend in your travels, especially when they are all so happy to be alive. I never experienced this much joy when running into NPCs in, for example, Elden Ring or Dark Souls, with the exception of Solaire, of course, because who doesn't love Solaire? But there is something about the way that Team Cherry does NPCs that just makes the game better. And I'm glad for it. So I'm excited to keep meeting NPCs and see where all this story goes and see what else opens up to me. I know that there's going to be so much more to explore, but that is it for today. I didn't expect or plan on making a video after my first session, but I had so many thoughts and emotions that I had to put something together. So stick around if you want to see more, as I will definitely be chronicling more of my journey through Silksong. And if you want to come check me out on stream, come check me out over on Twitch before I upload these videos over on YouTube. So until the next one, I am Zizix, and thank you for watching.